This is the jumbled beginning of a new text, a new step forward, to systemize the rising of the phoenix exponentially around a construct of its own bearings in the subjective mind. That is the task at hand. Genesis, page 1. Nothing less than all in together equally will be tolerated.
Happen.
Hello, my name is Yap. I'm going to ad-lib my way here around a certain field of thought that I recognise in my own mind, my own perspective, if you like, on this reality. You know, we cannot change our problems at the same level of awareness at which they were created, Albert Einstein. You know, we cannot change our problems at the same level of awareness with which they were created. You know, the misogynist is not going to get us out of misogyny. That's what he means. The racist is not going to get us out of racism. You know, the pseudoscientist is not going to bring, a field of science into existence for us, into our subjective existence that we can all live by. We're all looking for one root. I've been looking for the root, of our existence, the root of our nature for many, many, many years of my life. I've kind of learned music in reverse, if you like, the music of the mind. I've learned to play music, and now I'm learning that it's called C minor and F minor and so on. That's just an analogy to show you like the philosophical field I work in. You know, I've innately understood all my life, structures and where people were, and I felt this inside, and I followed my own path. I jumped off the yellow brick road a long time ago when I realized, grown-ups at the time, didn't know what they were talking about. Some of them were Catholics, and I couldn't trust somebody who would trust a Catholic ideology when it was actually a primitive ideology. Primitive because it went against the grain of our nature. It created imbalance for a species that desires balance of mind for if it is to enjoy life, and happiness and the smiles of children. I hope to bring a science. We're all allowed to broaden the spectrums of thought. That we're all allowed that possibility. I'm entitled to step in and come in, with a smile and a handshake and bring in a science, a new perspective, and broaden the perspectives that we have already. The science of the law needs to be broadened if we are to change, our paradigm. The law in this system, the system of jurisprudence, is actually a system of pseudo-jurisprudence, which means that this is false science supporting it, just like there was a false science supporting Catholicism. And to have a pseudoscience, a false science, means you're not operating in the correct categories. The law, if we look at the law we have today, it's categorized around the elite, the categories that hold it together, the judges and how they categorize themselves. When we look at Henry Thoreau, if you like, when he was looking at Henry Thoreau was a great philosopher, so I can bring Henry Thoreau into the room right now in an objective frame. He's still alive and kicking, in people, and he was one of the heaviest fighters and philosophers of all time, and he's part of my arsenal. All's fair in love and war. My arsenal is going up against the Pentagon here, if you like, and the Machiavellian snot, upper class snot politics. And incidentally, I might digress here. I will digress a lot. I'm digressing now, but I digress, but I will bring the picture back together, and I will make it cohesive before I finished and extrapolate at the end from the whole. And that's what's important. I'm just trying to describe a certain, as Ferrer said, the answer's in the description. If I'm trying to describe a square to you, I have to proposition a square for you, and I'm trying to describe a cube for you, I have to proposition that cube for you. And I have to proposition it around its inferential points, the points that hold the idea of a square in our subjective mind. I can hold a point, right, 4 points in my head right now in my subjective mind, and I can understand what a square is, an idealized object. It's idealized in an idealized frame, and I can put it out into an objective frame and relay it to you for concurrence of picture. Now this is it's subjectively how we move science is the same way. We move around minds around certain aspects of reality, and we look at the inferential points that carry certain aspects in a transcendental frame. We can read these frames. Now this frame, this structure I'm about to attempt to relay here to you right now, is the structure that holds the unified field theory in place. If you want to throw down a perspective of something, you need to hold a perspective of that thing in underneath it, so we can, for example, to digress, just to give you an example of the weight of what the unified field theory allows us to see. It's all about axiomatic spectrums, mathematical frameworks, but which I can't relate to today because it's a heavy study. But if you invite me into your universities, I will gladly relay it to you in a cohesive manner. In a manner that has the correspondence theory of truth, because it will correspond with you, therefore it will have consistency. And all the theory, anyway. there's a lot of work in my head, like I said, I throw down hard punches, but I will allude to the philosophers, now and again, but, for the sake of expedience, the Greeks were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whether they kept slaves or not at the time is all behind us now. I just want the content to work with expedience, first rule of mathematics is to move forward as fast as we can, so... it's so a perspective. Let's just look at time quickly. I just want to show you how to, show you time and what time actually is. And if we can understand what time is in a new perspective, I'm going to shift the paradigm right now on time in a small metaphorical framework, if you like. I'm going to show it now because metaphors paint subjective pictures for us in objective frames. So we can all intuit the inferential points about what I'm about to show you here. But here's the perspective. That holds time together. We can look at one perspective. Am I talking into the future right now, or am I talking into the past? Pretend my hand is a car here. Is my hand driving into the future or driving into the past? Because both perspectives, when we look at them in an axiomatic structure, which means a subjective structure based around the inferential points that hold that play together within its own circumstantial parameters, if you like. Both premises are sound. It is moving away from the past and into the future at the same time. So there's a bit of a paradox in that because we don't fully understand how that is possible. So how is time a constant? Well, if we actually look at time, well, let's just take, when we were Columbus, the monster that he was, arrived in America and chopped up all the good people. New York was already in the mountains. New York was already in the seeds, becoming trees, becoming roofs of houses. New York was already written into the geography that was there. My point being, no parts were coming in to the future. The parts were already with us. Even though New York happened 400 years after Columbus, if you like, well, a couple of hundred years, whatever, the times are not important. The point is New York happened. That means we remodified the geography of the country. We took some mountain and turned it into New York, but the parts were always there. So 400 years later, technically, New York didn't come into existence. New York was always in existence. Therefore, all the parts are always being used at all time. Therefore, time is a constant. So what we have is a phenomenological illusion. Phenomenology is the study of the mind. We have a phenomenological illusion that things are moving forward because things are being modified all the time, but we're actually stuck in a constant frame. Now we're a second order condition of a first order imposition. We are an imposition of parts, therefore we have, we are an imposition. We are not the, I didn't decide to be this shape, this form, this brain, these eyes. I was in a seed. Synthetic a priori means I was locked in. I can synthesize that position with a transcendental first order picture. Anyway, the point is about time. That's just a quick perspective of time, but I have a mathematical frame, so I can have mathematics that can back that up, and I can show you a whole spectrum of thought that can wrap that up for you. But the fact is, that cannot be deconstructed. Time is not moving forward or back. That's an illusion. Time is with us, because if time was possible, then we would be moving into the future. And what is going to come into the future? If nothing can come into the future, that's a technicality. Tomorrow's spaceships are sitting in mountains today. Okay, tomorrow's spaceships, tomorrow's cities are sitting with us today. Tomorrow's tree is a seed, that was water, 50 years ago, whatever. There's modifications, massive modification, remodification. We're not 100 billion years old, we're 100 billion, trillion modifications old, if you like. But we're modifying around a constant. Now this constant is our transcendental root. It's the constant of the metaverse. The metaphysical is the universe is out here, the metaverse is the metaverse down there, like Kant said, extensive magnitude. The axioms of intuition allow us to see things, extensive magnitude. Every empirical phenomenon, which is spatial temporal, has extensive magnitude, i.e. can be understood as an aggregate of its parts. It's by virtue of these axioms that mathematics and geometry are applicable to the world of experience. Kant. Let me explain what he meant by that. Every empirical phenomenon, this wall is empirical. This symbol here is empirical. It's a phenomenon. Okay, it's a remodification of metal, but it's still a phenomenon. It's an objective phenomenon that I can touch and see and so on and hear. So that's an empirical phenomenon. It's empirical because I know it to be here with me in this temporary framework, spatial, temporal time. We exist in a temporary time. I subsist, in fact. The parts that make up my imposition exist, but the form they take on at the moment, the modification subsists. So therefore I subsist on the back of something else. Okay, so I'm in a temporary framework. I will exist in this form for a certain period of time. But my parts, because they have extensive magnitude, like I said, when any empirical object can be broken down, and with extensive magnitude. Let me explain what that means. Like here's a technical fact if we're looking for the unified field theory. There's no multiplication because we can't, or adding or subtracting. You can't take away or add on. That's just in temporary frames. We have to look and subjectively understand what the unified field theory is in a constructive, systemized manner. Therefore, we have to systemize the subjective mind in an objective manner and relay pictures to each other through the coordinates of language. All heavy stuff, all beautiful stuff, all obvious stuff too, but It's hard work, but the work is there, you know, the root is there. But extensive magnitude. You know, planet Earth, for example, is not bigger than a grain of sand, because when we aggregate planet Earth with extensive magnitude, all of it can be turned into pieces the size of a grain of sand. So 2 pieces is not bigger, it's 2 pieces. Technicality, that's a technical fact. So, and all the pieces of sand can aggregate even further. They can be extended to have magnitude. Each grain of sand has magnitude. Okay, so therefore it can be extended. And when we keep breaking it and aggregating, it means chopping it up, okay, putting a 0 in between it, chopping it up. We still have the parts until eventually all the parts disappear into a transcendental whole. That is the metaverse, because we can deconstruct down into that, where we lose all geometrical points of reference. That's why it becomes a transcendental whole, and we can structure our minds into that position. All humans have the phenomenological apparatus to do this. The a priori apparatus, you know, the a priori apparatus to structure our mind around certain frameworks. We can detach concepts from their normal settings right now and retain most of the inferential connections. You know, I detached time a few minutes ago from its normal settings, you know, from a few modifications ago from its normal settings. I can bring it in again right now, the perspective of it. I can detach World War II from its normal settings right now and create it here in an objective frame for you. This is how we can, just quickly to show you, to digress, how we can get rid of history and look at history in a quick manner. The Wellingtons and the Hitler War and the hats and the tanks and what dates were made of add nothing to the picture, so we can exclude all that, expunge. Let's look at the weight of it, the inferential points, what we infer about it. Whether you're a man in Chinese, a man in Russian, or a woman in English, it doesn't make no difference. We infer certain things about the corruption, the imbalance, that, you know, the impositional, dispositional variables and the circumstantial parameters that created the constraints of its own contingency. World War was, you know, based on its own bearings, if you like. You know, when we proposition it and look at it, it brought imbalance for the species, so we can rule it out as a negative, you know, as a pseudoscience. Pseudoscience is based on a solipsistic version of what the world might be. Solipsism is an independent point of view of the world that has no science to back it up. Catholicism is an independent point of view of the world that has no science to back it up, as is Catholicism, as is capitalism, I should say, as is monarchism, you know. When we look at the Enlightenment, what was the Enlightenment about? Let me show you what Enlightenment is about, you know, in a unified way. I'll unify it right now with some consistency. You know, authoritarianism, obscurantism, you know, and traditionalism. The traditions of popes. The traditions of soldiers marching in fine honour and pinning medals on them and jump into the trenches when you're told to, succoured into the trenches. Good men, good women, and their essence was fighting for freedom, but they were being succoured. They were being lied to. The elite have been dividing us up for centuries. This is an absolute fact. So when we look at traditionalism, we still have the tradition of the elite. We still have the soldiers marching by and the tanks and the jurisprudence that serves them, traditional, okay? And that's obscurantism, because that obscures our nature. You know, the protocol that protects institutions, that demonises anyone who's an agitator. I'm an agitator to the elite right now, but tough shit, you know what I mean? Like, you know, Einstein is on my bullet because he's with me, you know, he's in my punch, you know what I mean? Like, my sword is back into stone and I'm going to win this war. My sword is back into stone, I'm going to bring down the Pentagon with one punch. Tiny little numbers. Tiny, 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 tiny little numbers. The law of averages tell me that they're all criminals. Kissinger was a murdering bastard based on the law of averages. Happy for him to come back to the table as a human being, but while he's an inferior, you know, negations. You know, ignorance is not, you know, a different reality. Ignorance is a negation of what we understand subjectively in us. Okay, that's why things go against the grain. It's a metaphor, the grain. It goes against our nature. Our nature is based around balance and imbalance. All war has brought imbalance. It has created the wrong disposition for an imposition that desires equilibrium. It's why we phonetically use the word equality, based on the biological and psychological structure that I am. I do not want anyone to impose on my imposition without the correct disposition. You know, if you're with a woman as a man and two impositions and you're disposed to each other to make love, that's beautiful. But if you're disposed to each other to beat each other, that will create a negative frame for our impositional parts, okay? So we can put that into an axiomatic spectrum just like that and see the outcome. This is why we desire certain roads and some roads are undesirables, you know, the antisocial behaviour of the Blair types, you know, the Thatcher shit. You know what I mean? Like, they're shit, you know, inferiors, absolute inferiors. There are no inferior people among us, but there are inferior ideologies. There are inferior ideologies. You know, a square is carried from the subjective mind into the objective frame. That itself is a subjective picture. We can transcend and circumscribe our minds around, condition our minds around. I'm here to condition you, absolutely. We're all gurus. I'm just a guru getting on with it, guruizing, if you like. You know, using the hand I was given wisely. You know, with the grain, that's my choice, you know, in the groove with mammy nature. You know, and that's what I'm about. You know, we have to move forward. You know, this is kind of a jumbled version, if you like, you know, of a new text that's needed, a new structure that's needed. You know, I'm just trying to relay some heavy punches here, and I will sum it up in a minute and show you why. You know, but we have to we have to basically, to use it in a metaphorical way, we have to systemize the rising of the phoenix exponentially, around a construct of its own bearings, in the subjective mind. That is the task at hand, So the phoenix rising is mankind rising to a new enlightened state. When we get rid of anything that obscures us, obfuscation and PR, that obscures our nature. The tradition of PR. PR has become a tradition. Exploitation is a tradition. And we have to deconstruct these ideological spectrums, and I have, no psychologist can argue with what I'm saying here. This cannot be deconstructed like some Freudian dream. Tell me about your dream. I'm throwing down structures and objective frames that a square is in your mind right now. Let's move four of the axioms more, we have a cube, and let's make the axioms more complex, we have the movement of a Rubik cube. I can relate that to you because your phenomenology and my phenomenology allow us the same apparatus to concur and circumscribe our mind around certain pictures. This is why when I circumscribe my mind around aspects of world history, I detach them and I look at them. World War II, women's history, the Ying dynasty in China, who cares? You know what I mean? The Kremlin, the Red Menace, this, how did this, just solipsism, the intertextuality of solipsistic frames, solipsism, pseudoscience, but in between the pseudosciences, hermeneutically, the art of the science of reading in between the lines, when we read in between the text, the intertextuality, in between the solipsistic frames, the goodness, the text, the utopian frame is written in there. It's a systematic fact. I can systemize it. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm systemizing it. I'm looking at the composition of any war, exposition of any war, imposition or disposition of variables based on their own circumstantial parameters or ontological parameters and so on. The constraints of contingency. Monarchy is about the constraints of contingency. The contingency of monarchy, the contingency of capitalism, how it constrains us, how it constrains our subjective take on reality. It stops us thinking. It stops us as a species. That's a phoenix coming back to life. So we have to systemize that rise. The exponentiality of that rise. The exponents that make it up. World War II was exponential abstract. It used the parts that were here with us. All the parts are always being used at all times, but it used them in a negative manner. It turned our mountains into tanks and into bombs, okay, rather than turning our mountains into incubators. And we don't need to turn our mountains, and we're killing people under capitalism. There's people out there digging in shit today, digging up diamonds. A girl's best friend. People are dying to put pathetic rings on your fingers. Traditionalism, it obscures the fact. And authoritarianism keeps that fucking tiny little spectrum in frame. The Pentagon, the cavalry have become the Pentagon. We've killed all the Indians, so let's kill the Iraqis now. We need to build more bombs and control. It's so violently primitive. It's primitive. The monarchy, your excellency, your preeminence, your honor. It's disgusting. It's arrogantly disgusting. I'm the refined class. The queens are not entitled to refinement. Blair is not a refined man. He kills cultures. He's allowed 100,000 innocent people to be killed in Iraq. In the last 2 years, and 1 million before that. Genocide. Genocide from Einstein. Genocide from Thoreau. Genocide from Emma Goldman. Genocide from Malcolm X. Genocide from Martin Luther King. Okay? Those people are still alive. Have we forgotten? They are still alive and they're alive in us. That's what Malcolm X is in me right now, a warrior. He was an extreme of an extreme. Don't fool yourself. We're all fundamentalist. Gandhi was a fundamentalist of peace, as am I. I'm fundamentally opposed to the Blair-Bush administrations. I'm fundamentally opposed to the Machiavellian whores, the Milli Vanilli whores who are fucking running our lives. Absolutely. Revolution went down on my arse, Pseudo-frames, it all disappears, iconoclasm, absolutely. We've got to burn down the capitalist church, we've got to burn down the monarchical churches and the authoritarianism of this patriarchal bullshit, Rambo-eyes, my cock is bigger than your fucking cock bullshit. Like tiny little empires. The emperors built, big dick Lego brick empires, tiny little pyramids. They're tiny. We can construct our mind around these pyramids, and they were Lego bricks built in slavery. Okay, Thoreau and Emerson and, Popper and all the, Chomsky, they left us huge pyramids, subjective pyramids. And, it doesn't matter whether you can spell transcendentalism in school. What matters is you can transcend yourself around this universe. You can pull frames in and out. You can understand the movement, the time, and the modifications of time, etc. Now, if you rewind this tape, you will not find a mistake anywhere. I'm Mozart perfect. Happy to brag to brag. Happy to brag to brag. I don't make mistakes. I don't make mistakes about our nature. I may have made mistakes in the past about and how I lived my life and conducted myself, with other human beings. But, I was brought up in a silly little framework, a Catholic framework, a patriarchal framework, a misogynistic framework, not my family personally, but we're all part of a big package. All of us part of a big package. What a man should be, what a woman should be. Today women have been reduced to silicone breasts. Motherfucking nature, the weight, the evolutionary weight, the conceptualization of what mother nature is in perspective to silicone breasts, It's It's just fucking, we're all the beautiful colours of nature, each and every one of us. And women right now are working for magazines, and the magazines are making them feel insecure about their own bodies. You know what I mean? Like, that is fucking Orwellian, doublethink. Okay, men are reading newspapers today that make the page 3 models are making their own daughters and their own sons feel bad about their body parts. You know what I mean? Like, when they have phenomenal brains, that means your brain's been dumbed down. You know, dumbed down doesn't mean stupid, but people have been dumbed down into Catholic frames. People have been dumbed down into racist frames. You know, the black men are inferior, yes sir. You know what I mean? Like, you know, people have been dumbed down into that position. People have been dumbed down into thinking their women should be behind the kitchen sink. That's a dumbed down position, you know. That's a manifestation of stupidity, okay? You know, that's divided and conquered. You know, we have been conquered. We've been wired up to new kettles and washing machines and mortgages, and we've been conquered. We rely on a Machiavellian system, how they wanted it. Killed our inspirations, killed our passion. Our ambitions are based on their packages. And, you know, become a Madonna, become a rock star, become a movie star, become a lawyer. Fucking just pull out the lawyer, look at the law, become a whore lawyer on Wall Street. I'm an accountant too, you know. I know all the accountants don't add up on Wall Street. Let's account for pollution. Let's account for babies dying every day, 30,000 babies dying every day. The unified field theory and a unified position sees economics as a whole different ballgame. I can see it as a whole different ballgame. That's what I can deconstruct, and I'm the best accountant right now. Philosophically, I'm a policeman, policing all of Wall Street and bank up there, killing babies over the phone line. Okay, chopping up cultures, chopping up fucking human beings. How disgusting, Your Majesty. Your Majesty is a representation of any fucking Machiavellian whore who holds an upper class ideology. You know, solipsism frames. You know, if you think you're better than anybody else based on Machiavellian ideology, you are the fucking inferior because you're categorizing yourself against human beings. You categorize yourself. I'm categorizing myself here today. My denomination, what I denominate myself with, highest common denominator, anthropos metron panton, man and woman are the measure of all things equally. You know, but anyway, what is all that about? It's about intelligence. You know, Wellington is under my boot as a dead fly. Nelson tiny, Pyramid tiny. Like I said, big dick, Lego brick tiny. You know, I'm tired, you know, we have to rip it up and start again. And we have to do it in a compassionate way. You know, we have to do it in a compassionate way. I'm inviting Blair to the table. I'm inviting George Bush to the table. I'm inviting you to the table, and I'm coming to the table too. I'm inviting the economists and the lawyers to the table. I'm inviting the racists, the Nazis, the right-wing think tanks to the table. I'm inviting the anarchists and the socialists and all to come to the table. Let's throw out an objective framework and find out conclusively what we're about. Because I'm saying, philosophically, mums and dads in every country love their babies equally. We're all firemen ready to die for our babies right now. Okay, we're all firemen, we're all soldiers of poetry, you know, but we're not soldiers of Machiavellian guns and tanks, you know. Your sons are being robbed on battlefields right now, killing other sisters and brothers because somebody wants a bigger slice of the pie. And behind the men, the aegis behind the aegis behind the aegis, they're the ones we're after, you know. And I hope the Machiavellian whores, you know who the dreaded they. You know, we've been fucking ourselves over. One law for the rich, one law for the poor, you know. Sing it with me and bore me to tears. I'm sick of it. What do we want? When do we want it now? I'm sick of that. Red nose, desperation days for pennies. Red nose, you know, desperate. You know, let's put band-aids on the cancers. Our system is tiny and we can deconstruct it. And political sensibilities are against walls right now, I know, because I can deconstruct your nonsense. You know, Columbus arrived in America, chop up, you know, get me the gold or I'll chop off your kids' arms. That was policy. That was subjective policy. That was ideological policy. That was an inferior policy because that's how he categorized himself. And that's the categories he will be remembered in. Posterity has him down as shit temporarily, but he's just a lost soul and he'll be gone soon. You know, it was a mistake, an impositional, dispositional mistake. Anyway, I want you all to, first of all, I'm here to fight for humanity, you know, why shouldn't I? Gandhi's with me, I'm going to use Gandhi, I'm going to use Einstein, I'm going to use all the good mums and dads out there who have fought and I'm going to fight with them. And, you know, we're all part of each other's arsenals. Chomsky's part of my arsenal, I'm part of his arsenal. John Pilger and Howard Zinn, you know what I mean, like Harriet Tubman, Angela Davis, Naomi Klein. There's beautiful, beautiful individuals out there who are fighting, you know, and I want to fight with them. You know, and it's important that we fight and we stand up, you know, because utopia is not built of banks or high-rises or monarchies, okay? You know, once you have a hierarchical structure, it doesn't matter how the PR plays out. Doesn't matter the categories of PR or the categories of lies, you know. It doesn't matter, you know, obscurantism, obfuscation, you know, they will not let us see the truth. And the truth is we're a huge species, but right now we're in an inferior framework. You know what I mean? Like capitalism is not a subjective, you know, reality. You know what I mean? Like it's, you know, it's a brutalization of our species. You know, babies are dying. I'm fighting for them. They've asked me to fight for them. So I want to come into your universities. I want to come into your clubs and pubs to talk. You know what I mean? Like, I want to talk and I want to organise. I want to find out where we're at, okay? I want to find out. I want us to put down our guns and find reconciliation. We've blown babies' heads off. Right now, you know, a dad is holding his baby in Iraq somewhere, you know, and his daughter's playing, and a bomb is about to come in the window and blow her legs off and melt his baby, you know, and burn his face off. That's a fact, okay? And they have no hospitals to go to because our American fucks blew them all up. You know what I mean? Like, not the American people, the American elite. Elite dollar, elite profit, you know, oligarchies out there, there's monopolies, there's huge corporations out there, transnational giants, you know, Goliaths, who are chopping up our culture. They don't give a damn because they believe us to be inferior. That's a fact. I've read the text, trust me. I have read the text, and it comes down to this. You know, economics is women going hungry for their babies. If you understand the essence and compassion in that, you understand economics. Their numbers are made up. Little ticks and boxes. Lawyers tick boxes and economists tick boxes on Wall Street. Tick the boxes, and let the money go up to the top. Okay? There's no world debt being written off for George Bush and the Glen Eagles 8. I'm going to write off world debt. You have a planet, it's yours, debt is gone. We don't need a court case. We're the lawgivers, as Kant said. We're all our own legislators. I can legislate that rape is wrong. I can legislate that murder is wrong. I can legislate that the elite fucking us over is wrong. Has been for centuries. Has been. I have centuries to go on. Centuries and centuries and centuries. The violent class is fucking over the rest of us. Well, no more. I'm coming, I'm here, I'm on video, you know, if they scrape my name out in the bulletin, take me out of the picture like they do with all the Socrates and all the good Martin Luther Kings, you know, they take us out of the picture. Well, that's their fight. Pentagon fights. Pentagon is just a bigger punch, you know, but it's still a punch. Round 1 is theirs violently. Round 2 forever. After that is ours if we want to stand up and use our intelligence. If we want to stand up and, where are our philosophers? I'm asking the philosophers in schools right now. I'm asking these kids who are studying philosophy, do something philosophically huge and invite in a heavyweight philosopher, Standard, who will bring the obvious, you know, who will bring a unified field theory, who will bring you a door into the metaphysical realms if you want it. If you want it, invite me in, and I'm not coming as your enemy. You know, do not be scared. I'm not here to have anybody locked up or anybody brutalized or anybody raped. That's a Machiavellian ideology. You know, I'm not going to build any prisons where they legitimately rape you with their fingers up your ass. You know what I mean? Like, I hope that sounds crude because the action of it is what's crude to me. The arrogance of it. Not to see that, not to see the brutality, not to see how families are chopped up. Young kids robbing mobile phones and being sent to jail for antisocial behaviour. Blair is antisocial by definition. You know what I mean? Like aiding and abetting criminals all over the world, you know. Surely he's suspect. Anyway, invite me in, I will bring a new war. I'll bring a war of peace. I'm going to bring Gandhi's war back to life. I'm going to bring Henry Thoreau and Emerson's war back to life. I'm going to bring people back to life. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to bring people back to life because I've read people. I've heard people scream for me. I've heard people fight for me. I've watched people die for me. I've had people who've had their sons' arms and legs blown off for me. Okay, for me and for you. I've let read books. I've let read Thoreau in the park because of beautiful mums and dads and children all over the world. Okay, so my fight is for them. My fight is for them, you know, so peace.